Hello, welcome back to Breaking Out the Technology in the Classroom with Brady Bame here. Today is Unit 3, Episode 1, Lesson 1 of Avatars and Self-Representation in Immersive Media Communications. So today we're really starting on Unit 3 to think about digital identity as really our starting point for this lesson. Specifically, how avatars represent who we are in digital spaces. We're thinking about every game character. We're thinking about every Bitmoji or profile picture that you've ever created. These characters are not random, they are choices. And those choices tell a story about who we are or who we want to be. Now, really, we start off with the question of what is self-representation? And self-representation has been happening in human history since really the dawn of creation across literature and the humanities, across arts. Humans have always searched for self-representation as a way to show one's identity, whether it's through clothing, through art, or through stories. Now through digital media. Self-representation is simply the way that we can show who we are to the world. And this is a central aspect of avatar creation and avatar usage. Daniel Zimmerman says one main motive for creating avatars is the representation of one's own identity. So it's this idea that in digital spaces, identity is often communicated through avatars, not just what we look like, but who we believe and think we are. Now, there are a few different types of theories which explain how people express themselves via avatar, and we're going to go through a couple of those today. So the first one is impression management theory, and Daniel Zimmerman explains this through his quote saying, "People strive to represent themselves as idealized and as positive as possible." In other words, we don't really often show the messy, awkward, insecure versions of ourselves online. We do not highlight those. We show, as we would talk about them today, the highlight reel, the joys, the happiness. We want to show the idealized person. Another theory is other than impression management theory, is self-discrepancy theory, which Zimmerman also introduces. And this is the idea that there's a differentiation or a difference between our actual self and our ideal self. The actual self is who you really are today, and the ideal self is who you wish you were, whether you were smarter or more confident, more attractive, or more successful. It differentiates between the actual self and the ideal self. The actual self represents the current self-image, and the ideal self includes the representations of how one would ideally like to be and the qualities one would like to have. And Daniel Zimmerman continues on saying that negative emotions arise from a sizable discrepancy between the ideal self and the actual self. Um, so another idea here is when the gap between these becomes too large, negative emotions can arise. Another hypothesis is the extended real life hypothesis, which argues that people actually portray their real personalities online. So this is a little different from that self-discrepancy theory. Here we have studies showing that people use their user profiles to predict actual personality traits of other users. And so this idea here is that people may be more honest than we thought they were in the self-discrepancy theory. Another hypothesis is the idealized virtual identity theory, which is an opposing theory. And this idealized virtual identity hypothesis says people present who they wish they were and not who they really are. So this is people showing how they would ideally like to see themselves, not necessarily who they actually are. But this gives me an idea. This gives me some food for thought. And is this possibly a negative view? And are avatars a good self-representation if they portray an idealized version of the self and not the true self? Is really my question. A positive look on avatars from Donna Davis. She writes that avatars are not fake in a way. She explains that avatars in immersive environments promote presence, interactivity, and community. She actually writes that she proposes a model that addresses the contextualization of that evidence when collected in digital environments that are traditionally defined by the common features of presence, interactivity, synchronicity, individuals represented as avatars, and facilitated by a network of computers or increasingly the cloud. So this idea that avatars are not fake, they are tools, and they help us feel connected in spaces that are not physical. Um, Avatars, when used positively, are supposed to promote community, encouraging community engagement, and lead to positive interaction.